Hello, great to see you again. Thank you for joining me. We've got a lot to discuss today. It's been quite an exciting week. There's been a nice camera announcement, which we'll talk about, and then there'll also be a lens announcement that I'm particularly excited about and I'd like to share with you. So I've purchased some items. They're on the way. It's including some lighting as well that I'm excited about receiving. But right now I'm just going to run you through the latest announcements, and particularly the one from Nikon, which is particularly relevant for this channel and it's exciting for me. And that is a new video camera. Yes, Nikon's new association with RED has paid off for us, and they've come out with the new ZR, R being for RED. And so it's a little compact, very versatile video-centric camera. Now it's not dissimilar to a Z6 in its structure. So we have the 24 megapixel partially stacked sensor from the Z6 Mark III camera. We also have the XP7 processor, and it runs with a CF Express card, which is very important. So for video work, all this is very relevant. Throw into that mix, you also have such things as image stabilization internally, which is incredibly important for video, particularly if you're using a stabilizer or handheld. It has a massive screen. So let's talk about some of these features in more detail rather than just skim over them. So first off, what's the association with RED theme? What's that all about? Well, in the past, a little while ago, there were some legal issues with RED and their ProRes RAW formulas. And what happened is basically they decided that rather than have a lawsuit with RED, it's easier for us just to buy RED out as a company. We don't have any of those legal issues for them claiming rights to our operational systems, and so therefore they have RED incorporated now in Nikon that empowers them to use all those RED formats and color gammas. Now that's very exciting for cinematography. We haven't actually utilized any of that as yet in any of the cameras, and this is why when they've released a camera associated with RED, then that's very exciting, because now we're starting to really see the benefits of that acquisition. So I'm excited because RED have always been well respected in the professional video industry as a leader in their genre. And so now Nikon, of course, has always been excellent with photography. They've struggled a little bit with video in the past. They've actually got there now and they've come very good. I know that because I'm videoing right now on a Nikon camera, and that was the ZFC. So it's only a crop sensor camera. It's a quite inexpensive camera, but I've seen the progress in their video production work now, even with the very modest grade cameras. Of course, I also have a Z9, which is very high end for video specs, and I'll run you through that in a little while as well as we compare this new product with some of the more outstanding older products. So is this Nikon Z RED version for everybody? Well, I say it can be for everyone, and there's several reasons for it. One is it's got a terrific small form factor. It only weighs about 630 grams, which is about 100 grams plus less than the Z6 III. Now, the Z6 III is not a particularly big or heavy camera, so having something even smaller, more compact and lighter than that makes it excellent for putting in your camera bag. Let's say you're a videographer and you're carrying around a lot of cinematic equipment. Wouldn't it be marvelous to have this tiny little compact camera you can have as a second shooter if you like? So that's an excellent option. Because it doesn't weigh much and doesn't take up much space, it's not dissimilar, say, to the ZF, for example, in size and format. It's very sort of square looking like that as well, without a big grip. So that makes it very easy to transport. It's also excellent for the use of putting accessories on. So what they've done is, rather than add a whole lot of accessories on the camera, what they've done is given you the scope to buy a rig, like, so for example, a small rig, have cages for videographers. You can buy a cage and then you can accessorize this camera as much as you like. But to keep the costs down and the format small, they've made it a very minimalistic camera. So what that's done is it's enabled you to have a very cheap starting point. So for example, if you're, say, a vlogger and you just want something light and simple with a flip out screen to do your videography with, and that's all you use it for, and maybe you're in, like me, in your room in your house and everything's very convenient and you don't need a lot of fancy gear to get the job done, this is where this can be an excellent camera for you as a starting point. You're not putting too much money into it and you've got awesome professional results straight off the bat. So when we talk about starting point, what are we talking about price-wise? Well, the price is around $2,200 US. So convert that from where you live in the world. For me, that'll be about $3,000 $300 Australian. And that's an extremely good value price considering what you're getting. Considering this is not a really, look, it works both for photos and videos because it's using that format, that theme of the Z6 Mark III. So yes, it will do excellent photos, but it's centric a video camera. So you can switch it over to your photo mode. You can use the flip out screen. There is no viewfinder. So keep that in mind, no viewfinder. That keeps the form factor down, the cost down. But it makes it so that you can use it as if you were using your mobile phone. So those who have done video work and photo work with their mobile phone, you're just looking at a big screen, you click on the screen, that's how you get your photo. Well, that's a very similar process to what you can do with this new ZR. So yes, it will take some magnificent photos, just as good as the Z6 Mark III would take photos, because it's using the same sensor and same internal equipment. So that's a great option to have, something that is a hybrid. But understand it is 30% photos, it's 70% video. It's not a 50-50 camera. It is mostly for video. So that's just very exciting. So a video-centric camera is going to be terrific. It means that you can have a specially set up video unit for when you want that. And when you want your photos, you can keep the settings for photos and you don't have to keep swapping between the two necessarily. Very excellent as a second shooter camera. We can choose to have it as a second shooter for photos or second shooter for video, and it's a very flexible unit. So some of the other things I'm very impressed with is, of course, it does have the XB7 processor inside now, which means your autofocus is going to be great. And yes, this is a RED camera with autofocus. That's very new. The format for the RED video is actually up to 6K because of the sensor. You can shoot 6K, 60 frames per second in your RED format. And that means that you get beautiful results that you can use your RED Lux with and get the results you're maybe familiar with if you're a RED user. But either way, you have ProRes RAW and other formats. So 4 and even 5, 6K up to at 60 frames per second using the full frame sensor. If you want to go 4K and 120 frames per second for some sports action or wildlife videography, you can still have your slow-mo, but it is in a crop for that particular arrangement. But let's face it, I don't know about yourself, but for me, 90% of the video work I do is 4K at 60 frames per second. Would it be nice to have also the 6K 60 frames per second option? Yes, and you get that if that's what you need or want, if that's the quality you're requiring to work with. But this camera provides all that, but just understand if you're going to go for a super slow motion, you want 120 frames per second, it will be in the crop format. Still works perfectly fine, still fully functional, it'll just go down to a more simpler format. So having the CF Express card, for example, which we talked about, is very exciting because, you know, like that's one of the big gripes I had with the ZF camera. ZF camera looked beautiful and took great photos, but I really believed that that was slowing down its video options and performance because it just couldn't have the flow rate it needed with a SD card. So this camera having the CF Express card, you can have up to, like I do, 1 or 2 terabyte cards. You've got long length of filming ability. It's high speed. It's not going to overheat. They're very, very reliable. Now, as a backup, they do provide a SD card, a micro SD card. For me, obviously you're not going to use that for video, but it's excellent for when you're doing your photos and your video. So if you're someone who's going to share the camera for some photos and some video, simply I would recommend, and I'm not saying you have to do this, but I would recommend that you allocate the micro SD card and use that little format for your photos. Maybe just JPEGs if that's what you're shooting. You might do fine JPEGs. Shoot them onto the micro SD card, and then you can leave your CF Express card with all that memory space and ability solely for your video, your high-end video work. That's how I would run it. So you might look at it and some have maybe said, oh, yeah, micro SD card, what a joke. Well, look, it's a joke for video, but it's no joke for photos. For photo work, that'll still be very fine and very functional. I would just allocate it for the photos and leave the video to the CF Express chip. As far as the battery operation goes, it has the same battery that the Z6 III uses. It's the EN15C battery, and of course they're readily available. A lot of Nikon shooters have a plethora of these. You might have a couple in your cupboard anyway, so that's a great option for you. And they do last very long. They are quite capable. I would highly recommend, however, you buy a couple of batteries if you don't have any in stock. And if not doing that, get a battery pack. I have a battery pack that's very capable with a high-end cable, so it's USB-C to USB-C, and it'll transfer the power to that camera indefinitely. I can have a whole day worth of power from a good battery pack, and then I'm not worried about constantly changing the batteries. This is something with this camera that's actually quite relevant to consider, because like many of the other Nikon cameras, especially they're like Z6 III, the ZF, the ZF-C I'm using now, the battery comes up from underneath in this camera, right? So it comes up from underneath, and so, unfortunately, do the CF Express card. So if you want to change a card, that can be very awkward when it's on a tripod or a gimbal and it's maybe a confined area and you can't open the door to get the battery in and out without taking the camera off the rig. You may not want to do that. So by having, well, a very large card, like I use 2 terabyte CF Express cards, that means I'm not having to change the cards often. They last forever anyway, probably most of the day. Because look, let's face it, who sits there and just shoots 5 hours of continuous video? Nobody does. That's very rare. So what you're generally doing is you might have 5 hours worth of footage, but you've done it over 5-minute intervals, then you've stopped, you've recomposed, another 5 or 10 minutes, you've stopped, recomposed and moved around. And so it's never running continuously for any one long time. So you do get the option of changing batteries and cards in most video applications, but I'm just recommending that if you're worried about that or it might be an inconvenience having to rebalance or reset up, simply get yourself a good battery kit and a cable and just have it permanently powered from that, and you're not going to have to worry about your batteries or cards. So you may see right now that I'm actually using a Rode microphone for a change. Now usually I don't use these wireless Rode ones unless I'm out on site somewhere, and so this is a Rode transmitter and I have the receiver on the camera, and that's where I'm getting my sound from today. So usually I use the shotgun microphone. I use this from Deity System, and this is a brilliant wireless setup. So there's a receiver, which I'll show you a little later on the Z9, and of course they've got this transmitter and shotgun microphone. That's what I'm usually using. Usually what I do when I'm doing these videos, I have this up on like a jig, crane, and that's pointed above me and it's out of sight of the camera, and it just gives me a good quality sound unit. These are actually, you're able to record internally into these as well if you want to. So you don't even have to use a wireless setup. You can just use the time code internally into their micro SD cards and then download that and sync it later in post. So that's another option you have with these higher end sound equipment. Now I'm bringing all this up for a very important reason, and that is with this new camera, it has a hot shoe that is electronically connected into the camera. So it's usable for microphones that can transmit into the camera directly. So you don't have to have cables and cords everywhere. It's an active hot shoe. Now that's brilliant because you can buy an accessory, a microphone, a shotgun style microphone, a little compact one for this new ZR camera, and that'll plug into the hot shoe and has your sound sorted without having to worry about syncing connections and cables and mucking about. It's just a very simple rig. So I'll show you some pictures of that. But that's a brilliant idea for those on the go. So if you're using, say, a Ronin stabilizer, you've got the gimbal rig, and the subject is no more than a few meters away from you, they're pretty close anyway, that microphone setup may be everything you need and might be very convenient and quick to set up. The other option, of course, is what I'm doing now, where you plug this onto yourself. I use a magnet inside the shirt to keep it connected wherever I want. I turn it on, and then I have the receiver on the camera, and then that just enables me then to plug that in and have it permanently rolling. So no cables is brilliant. I love the fact that I can have all these options without having connected up with cables, and that can be very cumbersome and trip hazard and annoying. So this new microphone setup they have in the ZR has that ability to have no cables if you should wish it. Speaking of microphones and sound, the ZR also has stereo microphones inside it that are directional. So the very high-end, high-quality audio. In fact, the ZR, and this is a very important point I want to bring out, has what they call 32-bit float, which is a high-end professional sound arrangement. So what does that do for you in your microphones? So when you're going over your bars and you're peaking in your sound, well, of course, you can bring that back and it just gives you more flexibility in editing and a cleaner sound. So that's a great option to have in this camera. It's the first time any of the Nikon cameras have had 32-bit float, which of course does illustrate why it's a video-centric camera. I think this is something that will be introduced into new models, into new cameras. So for example, if they bring out a Z8 or a Z9 Mark II, I'm sure that'll also have the 32-bit float because they are very professional and capable video cameras too. So that'll be something to look forward to in the future, but I don't believe that they can just introduce that with a firmware upgrade. It's something that has to be embedded into the camera, I'm pretty sure. So anyway, the sound quality is going to be excellent. That's a great option. You have directional microphones in the camera that you can choose to project forward, project behind you, ambiently get the sound from all angles, and that just gives you that options there. It's called ozone, I think. And that gives you options in sound that's internal in the camera, and therefore you don't have to bring accessories along if you don't wish to. Now, I'm a big fan of bringing sound along with me. I like the best sound I can possibly get. So am I going to be reliant on whatever's internally in the camera? Well, only in a pinch. If I have to, if I didn't expect and I didn't know and I just want to get some recording on the spur of the moment, then yeah, I'd use those facilities that it has, and I think I'd be very confident in them. The next thing I'd like to bring up about this camera that's very exciting, and a lot of the new Nikon cameras have the option of a flip-out screen. So we've got the ZF, ZFC, the Z50, Z5, the Z6 Mark III. They all have flip-out screens now. And so this is a great option because it makes it so much easier. You can see yourself in the video. So right now I'm on the ZFC doing the video here, and I can see with my flip out screen that I'm in focus, the little boxes on the eye. I can see it's recording, I can see the sound levels, and I'm very confident that everything's looking good and working very well. So having a flip out screen is terrific. Now with this new camera, the ZR, it has a flip out screen too, but it has a massive flip-out screen. So most of the other cameras have around a 3-inch screen. It might vary between 3 or 3.2-inch screen, but this new camera has a 4-inch screen. So 4 inches, go from 3 inches to 4 inches in a screen is a big difference. I know if you've, your mobile phones, you've compared them. You've had an older phone that might have had a 4-inch screen and then you've gone to a 5.5-inch screen. It looks massive. All of a sudden you realise just how much bigger that is and how more impressive your photos and imagery looks. Well, that's exactly what's going on with this camera now. So Nikon have decided to up the game with the screen that they provide, and have given a 4-inch screen, which basically takes up the whole rear of the camera. So when it's flipped back into the back of the camera, it's pretty much all the screen there and not much room for any buttons and little toggles. So that's something that you have to sort of compromise. You've got a small factor camera, you've got a big screen, you're not going to have much room for buttons, are you, on the back? So that's fair enough. I understand that you balance and you make compromises. But this screen is not a compromise. This screen is a massive unit, fully articulate with its flipping around, and of course being 4 inches and having very high resolution and 1,000 nits of brightness. I think it's equivalently to about 3 to 4K in its resolution, and it has, I know 1,000 nits, so it's very, very bright. So you can make it as bright as you wish. So you're out on a bright sunny day outside trying to do your photos and video, and you're dependent on the inbuilt screen to do that because there is no viewfinder. You'll still get an excellent image to see and work with. So, you know, they take your photos, you want to use the touch screen, you want to look at your menus, you'll be able to see that even in the most challenging of conditions outside. So that's very exciting to know that they've cared for us that way. So it's one thing to remove a viewfinder, but that's okay if you provide something else. And that's exactly what they've done. So the other option with viewing and having a monitor is, of course, you can also always, with a video camera, plug in a external monitor. So you may have an Atmos Ninja, it might be a 5-inch screen. Well, that'd be a great accessory to use with this camera. Or like me, you've got a 7-inch monitor I use for my video. I mean, I need all the help I can get. My eyes aren't getting any better as I get older, so the bigger the screen, the better. So I use a 7-inch screen when I'm going to put one on. But the 4-inch would be great for out and about. So I'd like to mention about that the HDMI port in this new camera, the ZR, is actually a micro HDMI port. Now that's a little bit disappointing, and a lot of people will say, oh, well, you know, that's crap, you know, that's not professional. Like the Z6 III and the Z8 and the Z9 all have full-size HDMI ports. And that's great that they do. I use it a lot on my camera, and I found it invaluable. It's awesome. But in the context of this camera, we must understand, of course, they've provided a bigger screen already. You probably will really never need to use another monitor, a bigger monitor than what they give you. It's very bright, very high resolution, and it's large. So needing the HDMI port is probably not really that relevant. It's a little bit sad it wasn't a full-size one, but if you're never going to use it, does it matter? And of course, you can buy a camera cage, and SmallRig will provide a camera cage so you can deck this camera out as big as you want. You want to puff it out with big microphones and hand grips and all sorts of accessories. You can do that for sure and put a monitor on it as well. But what they provide is an option where you can plug in an adapter. So you get an adapter from micro HDMI to full-size HDMI, and it'll be a little bracket and attachment on the side of your camera video rig. And then you can plug full-size HDMI directly into that. So there are always a workaround. There's always options around anything, and Nikon have provided options, and so will all the accessory manufacturers. They'll help us out to make sure that you don't miss out. So anyway, the recording time is going to be very long on this. You'll get up to 2 hours of recording. I think it's 2 hours and 5 minutes of continuous recording should you need it. And of course, also there's no overheating issues. So from what I hear, there's no fan inside the camera, as most Nikons don't have a fan. But this one here apparently is notoriously not heating. So that's very good. It doesn't overheat, and so you can be comfortable and rely on it. Even if you're out in warm conditions, you know that the camera's going to just keep going and not get in trouble. So keep your eye on it anyway. It never hurts to keep monitoring these things, but I'm very confident, as I'm sure you can be, that Nikon will build a great product that's not going to let you down. So as I was mentioning with the very large screen, this 4-inch screen on the back that takes up most of the real estate of the rear of the camera, because of this, there's very little room for buttons on a minimalistic camera. So what they're doing is, of course, they're encouraging you to use a menu system and the big screen to read the menu system, and therefore you're basically doing everything on the touch screen on the back. And so there's very few button options. There's a few. There's a little scrolling thing. There's a menu button you can click on. It's 3 bars, and you just keep clicking or double clicking or triple clicking to go through the menu system and your various options, like your quick access iMenu, for example. Now on top of the camera, there's a range of buttons as well. That hasn't changed in the real estate. I'm very excited at the fact they've got a big bright power button that when you press it, it goes green. You can see it a mile away. And they also have a little incandescent light on the front of the camera. So when it's recording, the little red light shows from the front of the camera, and if you're in front of it, you can see that it is actually recording, even if the screen isn't flipped out. It's also great for the talent to know when you are recording and when you're not, when they're live and when they aren't. So that's a very handy feature to have a red light illuminating on the front of the camera, showing when it's running. Apart from this, on the top of the camera, some of the exciting buttons. You've got 1, 2, 3 buttons there, you'll see, numbered 1, 2, 3. And they're, of course, for your user settings. So you'll be familiar with the Z6 items, Z6 1, 2 and 3. They all had U1, U2 and U3 on the little wheel there when you're choosing your modes. Well, this has just done this in the same way, but it's done it in the form of 3 buttons. So you can preset that. You can have one, for example, at 24 frames per second. You can have one at 50 frames per second and one at 120 frames per second. You set the menu, make sure that they're all exactly how you want them formulated, and then when you're swapping from one idea to another, one theme, you just click the button and there you go, it's all done for you. So having that programmed memory into the camera makes it very quick and easy to find what you need and to swap and change about. So I thought that was terrific, and of course those 3 buttons will also relate when you're on photo mode. So if you want to take photos with the camera, which you can use 1, 2 and 3 user settings for your photos as well as for your video, just swapping it over from photo to video. On the top of the camera, you'll also notice that you have a large button there for pressing for photography to activate your camera, and that'll start either record or it'll take a photo. But you'll notice there's a little wheel, little notch on it, and that notch is there for your power zoom. So what you do is you rotate that little button. It's sensitive and under pressure, so you can just move it up, move it back slowly. And if you're using a power zoom lens, of course, then it'll zoom in and zoom out electronically, very smooth, and you'll have a beautiful zoom in effect that's faultless and nice and smooth. So having that little toggle on top of the camera makes it very easy to use that feature, and I think it'll be an attractive feature to use once it's that simple and integrated. So there's some of the features that I've been very excited about. I will encourage people to sort of Consider this as a starting point camera. Let's face it, if they've done this once, they'll do it again. Just like they built the Z6 and then they built the Z8 and 9. They're not going to stop at this camera. This is like their entry point. They're testing the waters, putting the feet in just to see how the temperature is and how people react. And if it's taken off and a big success that I believe it will be, then they'll most likely bring out what will be like a Z8 or Z9 version of the camera. So it'll be a very, very competent, powerful, professional rig with all the buttons and all the mounting points and everything you could possibly need already established in the camera. Probably with a 8K sensor as well. So it might have the 45.7 megapixel sensor, then you can do 8K video. So who knows what they'll do in the future. I can't promise that, but it makes sense, doesn't it? That they're testing it out now in a modest fashion. And then if that takes off and it's successful and popular, they'll simply have that similar format but in a Z8, Z9 equivalent capability and size. And that's fantastic. So that's what I would like to talk to you about next. I'm going to bring my Z9 over and show you some of the features that I actually like on that in preference to this little model, and some of the features that I think about the little model that are better than the Z9. So let's just have a look at that. I'm going to pause and bring the camera over now. So here we go. I'm sitting here with my Z9 now, and it's all rigged up for video, ready to go. Now you notice I'll just run you through some of the features on this. So yeah, I take a lot of video. I do. If I do weddings, for example, 90% of the time I'm actually doing wedding videos for people rather than wedding photos. I do a lot of dance videos and music videos as well. So I need a rig that I can rely on, is competent and very versatile. And so this is why I've chosen the Z9, because I can swap from photos to videos very quick and easily, and I know I get an astoundingly good result. So I'm very happy with that. So let me just show you what I got. Apart from the fact that I've got a very capable tripod, this tripod here is an Actus 324, and it's a very heavy tripod and very robust. And then I have the Manfrotto 502 fluid head, which is extremely smooth and glorious to use for doing video pans, tilts and so on. So that's awesome. Now, what other accessories do I have on? Well, you can see here I have a Tamron lens. It's a zoom lens, so it goes from 35 to 150 millimeters and starts at f2 and goes to 2.8. So that's a nice bright lens and very versatile. That's a predominantly video lens that I use because it means I can leave that on. I don't have to keep rebalancing, and it does pretty much everything I could ever wish. So that's a great package for a Z9 camera. On the side here, we were talking about audio before, and excuse me if I tilt over, I'm going to be looking this direction a little bit, so I apologise for that. But here we have the sound unit, and I mentioned I use the deity system, so I have a shotgun microphone here on a transmitter, and then this will receive the information, and it'll, through the cable, go straight into the mic jack, and then I've got beautiful sound. And so I can be up to 150 meters away from the camera and zoomed right in and still get perfect audio as if I was standing right in front of the camera, because this is a very good unit. But the sound is very important, and we're talking about the sound on the ZR, how they've really made a big effort with the 32 float, the microphone options, the hot shoe that's interconnected into the camera. They're giving you a lot of sound relevance, and that's very important to do that. So I've had to make do with this with the Z8, or Z9 I should say, because the Z9 doesn't have 32-bit float, but with a good quality sound receiving system, I shouldn't have a problem anyway, should I? So that's all operational. So if you're wondering what was going on here, that's what's happening with that. Now you'll notice that if I spin this around, you'll see my monitor. Now I mentioned to you about the monitor, and I said how I use a 7-inch monitor, and that's a great monitor, very bright, highly coloured and sharp. This here, it's 1080 and 50 frames per second in its resolution and capability. I find it perfect for what I need. As I've mentioned to you in the past, I'm getting a bit older, my eyes are not as great as they used to be. The 3-inch screen is okay, it works quite capably. You know, you can pull this thing out, if I can, trying to see what I'm doing upside down. Here we are. So you can pull this out and you can move it around all sorts of different angles and ways, and that's fantastic. But for me, this one here is just a much better option. And I can do the same with this. I mean, this tilts in every direction that I want to tilt or angle it in. So I can use that. It's very, very versatile and nice and bright and clear. So when I want to see what's going on there, you get a nice big image. And you see all the information I've got on the screen there. So I've got the sound here. You can see if it's peaking or not. You can see all the different power ratios, my battery levels, f-stops and so on. And it's really easy to read And that's so important. When you're doing video, the last thing you want to do is skip something. You didn't notice that the sound was peaking. Didn't notice you had it on F7 or F8 instead of F2 or something like that. It's easy to miss things with the excitement of the moment and watching what's going on and worrying about your focus, and then you forget to look at all the little numbers and the little charts there. So it's nice that you've got those options to have a look at. So anyway, I was talking about a big screen. Look, this is a 3-inch screen. 4-inch screen is bigger again, which is great. You need that. So the new ZR, fantastic to have a bigger screen. But having a 7-inch screen is even better. So I'm a bit greedy there, but that's what I use. So I just wanted to run you through that and show you that when I'm talking about all these screens and how do I know, am I just making stuff up? No, I have all these screens. I've used multiple screens of different manufacturers, and I found this one most suitable for me. It's an aperture screen, fine HD. You'll notice on the back it runs on those Sony NB-PF batteries, and they're fantastic. They last all day. I've got like 16 of these batteries, so I never have to worry about running out of them. But this one here in its own will last several hours of operation on that monitor. So that's very handy for me. So I just wanted to run you through my general video rig. You can see I've got a cage on it. The cage, of course, enables me to put all the accessories that I wish, and I can mount as much or anything that I like. I can also put handles on if I want to take this off and use it as a handheld rig. It has the on this cage has the accessories to just slide on a handle very quickly, and I can up and go and on the run as quickly as possible doing handheld work should I wish to. So thank you for putting up with that. I just wanted to show you that one there so you can see that this is what I consider a professional video rig. The ZR, I think, is more of a, I'm not going to be rude and say hobbyist, because it's a semi-pro setup. It's sort of like the Z6 III camera. The whole idea of the Z6 III is it's that intermediate mark, isn't it? It has a lot of pro features, but it's not actually a pro camera. If you want a pro camera, you're going to get the Z8 or the Z9. That's really the pro camera level end. But the Z6 is a very capable one, and I think the ZR, which is based on it, is excellent, and particularly excellent for doing stabilization work. So if you've got a Ronin RS4 or whatever brand you happen to be using, even if you're just using 2 handles and it's handheld, or the top grip handle, briefcase handle I think they call them, anything like that you're using that's light and you want to keep the weight down, that ZR camera I think is fantastic. Trying to handheld and walk around with this thing is horrendous. You put this thing on a stabilizer, which I can do, and I have done, I've done videos on it, that's great, you can make it all work, but it's so heavy. Your arms just turn into mush after about 15 minutes. You can't hold the damn thing anymore, it gets exhausting. So having a lightweight camera that doesn't require accessories. It doesn't require an external monitor because it gives you a big 4-inch monitor. It doesn't require a lot of microphones because it has great internal sound. How wonderful is that, to put on something like a stabilizer and come around and you've got beautiful stabilized vision, you've got internal stabilization in the camera, and then you've got the stabilization of your Ronin or whatever you're using, and to combine that, lightweight, you could run around and do video with that all day and never get exhausted and tired. So this is terrific if you want to put something on a tripod. So you're doing a tripod rig, fantastic, or a monopod even, but for handheld, this is very awkward and difficult. This new little ZR, brilliant for run and gun videography. So I highly recommend it for that. So it's like horses for courses. If you really want some top end stuff, you want something like a Z9 or a Z8, but if you're running and gunning and you want something light and versatile, this is where I really recommend the ZR as the perfect camera for you. Some other features regarding this camera and why I think they're going to bring out a professional version of this ZR. What they'll call it, I have no idea, but it might be they'll call it a Z9R or something like that. I don't really know, I'm just making stuff up. But here's some of the features that I think that you can't ignore in a camera like this. Now, I just turned this off because it was in record mode there. But look at this, the battery here. See how you can just pull out the battery in a moment? I don't have to take the camera off the tripod or off the stabilizer. It's always there and it's just safe and together. Quick access. So within a few seconds, you can pull your battery out, you can swap it with another one, and it's accessible. That's really a big deal. In the ZR, you can't do that. You can't do it because the battery is up under here and it would hit the rig and make it very awkward to change. So you could get away with it by putting a spacer. So if you put a razor on this of about 1.5 inches, 2 inches, then you could access your battery door and your battery and get things in and out if you needed to. But it's just making the camera rig very high. So it's up to you if that's your thing. Personally, I love the fact that the battery comes out from the side, and most professional dedicated video cameras will do exactly that. They're not going to have a little door trapped underneath into the tripod that you've got to struggle to get your battery out. The battery's going to come from the side. Whether it comes from the left side or the right side of the camera, it doesn't matter, but you need access. Now, we're talking about access. Here's another point of access that I think is very important. You see here we can get the little cards out. I can pull it out. There's a 2 terabyte card there. You don't have to pull that out too often. And you've got 2. So having the 2 CF Express cards there, and I can have 4 terabytes there, sorry. 4 terabytes going to last me all day. I don't have to change the cards. But the bottom line is, notice where they're accessible. Quick, easy to access. I don't have to take the camera off the rig. This is something that when you're talking about professional video cameras and the top end ones, they're the sort of features you have. Accessibility. So not just functionality. So the ZR has the functionality. It has CF Express card. That's fantastic. But it's very difficult to access it from underneath. It's very awkward. So I just wanted to run you through why I think that Nikon will be making a full-size, very professional RED camera in the future. I look forward to seeing that one. It won't be cheap, probably $10,000 because of all the features they'll put in, and they'll want to make it so it's already has heaps of mounting ports. You know, heaps of those little 1/4 and 3/8 ports on it, so you can mount accessories to it without necessarily buying a bracket if you didn't need to. So that's something to consider on the ZR. You have only 1/4 inch mounting plate. Right underneath, 1/4, that's it. There's nothing else around it to put accessories to. So you will need to buy a cage, definitely, if you want to accessorize that new camera. But other than that, like, I got no problem with it. It's horses for courses. You know, this has a niche. It's a lightweight niche for the ZR. This is a heavyweight niche for mounting multiple accessories. That's fine. I look forward to seeing what Nikon can do, making a big RED camera of this sort of magnitude and capability. So just finally, what I would like to discuss with you is about some lenses for this camera. Now, we're talking about the little ZR again now, and I'm suggesting that because it is a lightweight, small form camera, where possible, it'd be nice to have some very small lenses on it to keep the weight down and lightness. So I've got 2 I could illustrate here right now. I am buying 2 others very soon. So here we have a Nikon lens and I have a Viltrox lens. The Viltrox one I have here is a 20mm. So it's a nice wide 2.8 lens. So if I need something wide, I can use this one. Very lightweight, 175 grams, something like that. The Nikon equivalent, which is the 28mm 2.8, this again weighs about 170 grams, so very light. So you can imagine these on that little ZR. Not only are you going to get great image quality and you're going to get nice wide angle to film with, but the beauty of this is it keeps all the weight down. So if you're hand holding again, the less weight you have on that rig, the better. So these, of course, they weigh next to nothing. Makes it just so much more comfortable. Now, the other one I'm getting is I've already ordered pre-ordered the 14mm Viltrox lens, and you may not know about that one coming out. But this Air class is very lightweight Viltrox lenses. Viltrox is going to bring out a Nikon 14mm, which is extremely wide. It's an f4 lens, and I think that's just to keep the weight down and the size. So they're trying to keep a modest, light and capable. And so f4 for wide angle is more than suitable. 90% of the time you're using it for landscapes anyway. And if you're doing landscapes, scenery shots, you're going to be shooting at f8 anyway. So f4 is actually a bonus in that scenario. For video though, it's more than capable enough and you get plenty in focus. You never have to worry about missing focus then. So I think the f4 14mm from Viltrox is very exciting. They make a sister lens as well for that, and they make it for the ZFC I have here, Z50. It's going to be the crop sensor version, APS-C lens, and that's a 9mm lens. But it's physically identically the same as the 14 as far as its size, weight and structure. Only difference is it's a 2.8 at 9mm. Of course, at 9mm, you add 50% of that, you get 13.5mm. Pretty much the equivalent of 14mm, isn't it? So if you want one of these lightweight Viltrox lenses, ultra wide 14mm equivalent, you buy this Viltrox 9mm, and look, it's very cheap. It's a couple of $100, super lightweight. Why wouldn't you just have it in your bag if you ever thought you might need it? You know, it's a great idea to have light lenses if you've got a light camera. So if you've got something like a ZFC Z50, or you've got this new ZR video-centric RED camera, having some nice small lightweight lenses to match the lightweight camera just makes a joy of the shooting experience, and particularly the packing it in a camera bag. So when you're placing everything together and you're putting your lenses and your camera together, you can get that down to a very, very compact, small size arrangement, which makes it excellent for transport, particularly on an aeroplane or something like that when you're thinking about baggage weights and volume. Or if you're on the run and gun and you've got to carry it around, you don't want to slug around some great big suitcase. Why not just have a nice modest little camera bag and a few light lenses? So I think that's the way to go. So as I said, I'm getting the 14. I'll also get the 40mm from, I think I'll get the Viltrox 40mm, to be honest with you, because it's a 2.5 f-stop, and I think that's more than adequate. It's all I need. So I'm going to get that kit of light lenses all together, and then I'm going to be able to have this nice lightweight package. Should I get the ZR? I don't know I will. I'm not promising I will yet. I'll have to wait and see a few more reviews and commentaries on it, but it looks like a very exciting unit all the same. And you know, the lightweight factor and the big screen, one thing that does everything all in one little package, well, that's fabulous. So thank you, Nikon, for that one. We appreciate anything you bring out. You always bring out great stuff, and we're happy to receive that and have an option with it. So my closing thoughts on all this is that whether you buy a Nikon lens, or you buy a Viltrox lens, or you buy a Tamron lens like I have there, or Sigmas that I've owned before, the branding is not as important as what is the camera body. And this is what I keep coming back to. I love the Nikon camera bodies. I reckon they're amazing. The Nikon lenses are equally fabulous as their cameras, but they are just very expensive. And there's usually just cheaper, better value for money items around. They're not necessarily as good. I'm not saying they're as good or better, but I am saying that value for money wise, you can usually buy 3 of these Viltrox for the price of 1 Nikon lens. So just consider shopping around. Don't think that just because you've got a Nikon camera, you must buy a Nikon lens. It's great if you've got the money to throw at it, but they are quite pricey. So anyway, have a great time, guys. Thanks for listening to me rant about this camera I haven't picked up yet, but I've had enough experience with Nikon stuff to know that it's going to be great. So I give it a double thumbs up, and look forward to getting one in my hands as soon as I can. Thank you for your time, guys.